Hey, welcome, friends and family. Super excited to be here with you today with my great friend, KC, Kenneth Cope. And we're just going to continue to go through the book of How to Win Friends and Influence People. What a phenomenal, legendary book. And again, we just want to give a little bit of motivation with Elevate, motivate with Elevate. That's why we're here today. And we think this book can help motivate people. Because the deal is, man, what's never going to go out of style is learning how to handle and deal with people. That's never going out of style.
That's so true. And, this book has I think we mentioned in the last video, has some great concepts in it. You could take, I think there's 30 chapters in this book, and you could take and digest each of them. You could probably spend a month on each chapter and really digest how to incorporate this into your life. And it 100% will make you a better person overall if you do it accurately, 100%.
Yes. Yeah. And so, people skills you don't just need this if you're in sales. You need this if you're an attorney, if you're a doctor, if you have a husband or a wife or children. People skills will never go out of style. Chapter 2 is what we're going to be talking about today. Casey, it says the big secret of dealing with people. And I love this here. It said, there's only one way under high heaven to get anybody to do anything. Did you know that? There's only one way. Did you ever stop to think about that? Yes, just one way. And that is by making the other person want to do it. I like this thing right here. He says, remember, there's no other way. Of course, you can make someone want to give you his watch by sticking a revolver in his ribs. You can make an employee give you cooperation until his back is turned by threatening to fire them. So they got to want to do it, basically. And he kind of gives you a little joke, like if I put you'd want to give me your watch because you're not going to get shot and killed.
Right.
But truthfully, what a powerful statement. There's only one way to get people to do things, and that's to make them want to.
Correct.
And obviously, he doesn't want to use fear, but he puts that in there humorously to help us understand.
Right. Well, I think it's a reflection of that's a typical. When you think of what most people think of as a boss, right? I don't want to use the word leader because I don't think people think of leaders in this way. But when they think of bosses,
right,
in this way, when they think of maybe an authoritative figure or something like that, it's through force, right? It's you're going to come in today because I'm the boss and I said so. Or if you don't, then
we're going to cut off the pay.
Or whatever that looks like, right? And it's through that fear. That's why that's in there you can make somebody want to do it because they want to help you, or you can make somebody want to do it out of fear of recommendation, or which eventually leads to distrust. It leads to resentment, right? And an unhealthy environment. So again, it's a great chapter to.
He talked about Charles Schwab. And he talked about Andrew Carnegie. And for most of you probably understand that Andrew Carnegie was the biggest. He actually started with the trains with the Vanderbilt and then got pretty wealthy doing that and then went into the steel business. But Carnegie didn't really know much about the steel business. And he hired another guy that honestly didn't know a lot about the steel business. And that was Charles Schwab. Charles Schwab was 38 years old. And Andrew Carnegie offered him $1 million to come and run his steel company. And the thing is that, again, Charles didn't have a high understanding of steel, but he had what Andrew knew was more important, was a high understanding of how to motivate people. This was like in the 1920s or 30s, and he was making $1 million, a lot of money. It's $3,000 something a day. But it wasn't actually because he had a high technical understanding of steel, but he understood how to get people excited and motivated, rolling in the same direction. And at 38 years old, he was able to do that. That just kind of blew my mind. I was like,
right. Well, and to think that, for me to think that even in that time, there were people thinking this way.
Yeah.
Because, you think of, your grandparents' generation and stuff, and it was, do this because I say so. And, and you feel like the further you go back in time, the more that attitude was there, but it wasn't. There were clearly people that were thinking this way. And I'm sure there were a lot of people that were looking up and saying, well, look at those guys, they have everything, and they just lie, cheat, and steal to get it. Well, no, they didn't. They got it by practicing this book because that's how this got written.
Right.
So
Right. Even I've watched the men that made America, and great history document. It goes back through the Carnegies, through the Vanderbilts, through the Rockefellers,
mhm,
and it just does a really good job. But man, most of those guys, what they did was very legal, but they got so wealthy that it became a monopoly, and they eventually busted the monopolies
right,
and had to make it more equal. But like you said, back in those days, you could railroad people a little stronger than you can even today. But that principle never goes out of style.
correct.
Treat people. I mean, it really goes back to the golden rule.
Goes back to the golden rule. I
Jesus
agree.
was teaching it before these
Yeah.
guys.
Yep.
Just treat people like you want to be treated, and things are probably going to work out.
Hmm.
KC, for you, man, you're 32, 33 years old.
Hmm.
You run our sales team. You've had a great run this year. Our numbers are up. Everything's going in a really good trend, really good for us. And the cool thing is that 2024 was just a really difficult year for America as a whole. 2023, 3.5 million residential sales. 2024, I heard this when I was out visiting my friends in Texas. They said Santi told us that 80% of all small businesses are down this year from last year, and we're up. We already probably met our numbers from last year this year right now.
We're right at it. Yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And so, as our sales manager, you're I really appreciate the role that you have. And growing up, or even today, who is somebody that's been that God's really placed in your life to be that encourager, to really help admire and bring out your strengths? When you think of that person, like who do you think of? What's that make you feel like? What's
Yeah.
that look like?
Um, I think that I have several. I think I'm fortunate enough to have several.
That's awesome, man. What a
Um,
blessing.
so there's a lot of ways that my dad has been that.
Mhm.
He's never been the type that says you got to go do this. You got to go be a doctor. You got to go be this. You got to go do that. It's always been, uh, you got to find what you enjoy,
Mhm.
and there's more to life than money.
Mhm.
Um, which kind of encourages through that. Um,
Amen.
I think my wife is a part of that too.
Yeah.
We've been together for a very, very long time,
Yes.
and
High school sweetheart.
yes,
Still
most
married
certainly,
today.
and yeah, yep, and the do what 12 years next year, next June, 12 years married, and I think we've been together for 17, 18 years. So, obviously, she's been there through the ups and downs of the entire young adult life,
Mhm.
and through there. So I think that definitely she has been one of those. And honestly, I don't know how many people can say this that have been through college, but honestly, I had some professors in college that I think helped me out a lot too.
David, I remember you telling me about.
David Frazier,
Mhm.
he's now at Tarleton down in Texas, and that's where he's originally from, is down in Texas way. And
He was over the
um,
FH,
FFA
FFA.
program, the
Yeah.
agriculture program. He was the agriculture education professor at Tennessee Tech at the time that I got to be there, and I think he was a great influence to me when it came to some of these principles that is talking, and he is also a studier of books like this, and how
Mhm.
full is your bucket, and the Gallup Strength Finders and things like that, and just a great man. So I think I've been fortunate enough to have more than one.
Amen.
um, and I think what what divides a lot of America nowadays is there's several people that don't have one, and that's due to where the family culture is in America
Mm.
now, with people separating and going on, and um,
It's tough when you ain't got a dad in the home.
well, it's that, and I think as a nation we've all gotten a little more selfish than we used to be, and I'm talking overall. I'm not. There's
Mhm.
great people in this nation still, and
Mhm.
I don't mean to be making it what it is, but it's the truth of the matter that overall, as a people, as a society, we've gotten more selfish,
When Noah and I
and
was in Texas this week, and we stayed at the Westin Galleria. You and I have stayed there
hmm
before. It was right. So
yep,
it's the
in the mall.
largest mall in. I think it's the largest mall in the United States, but for sure in Texas. And if it's in Texas, it's the largest. There's a good chance it's probably the largest in the United States. But so Noah and I just kind of after our classes, around 5 or 6 at night, we'd go out and just kind of walk around. And few of the places we walked into, they were just cold, like, just almost like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And so one of the last places we went to, and we actually bought um, 3 dress shirts and 2 dress pants. I mean, the guy was very polite and he wanted to go out of his way to help, but he wasn't too pushy. And we told him that. We was like, sir, we really appreciate the way you conducted, how friendly you were, and how you helped us. Went out of your time. I'm telling you, some of these other places, they were just almost like you're a bother walking in their store. And I didn't expect the response I got from him. But he said, I've been in retail and in management for over 20 years. And he said, in this hotel especially, he said, when it gets closer to Thanksgiving and Christmas, clients will come in, people will come in, and they treat you like you're a towel, like you're supposed to be here, you're supposed to do this, and like almost like we're transactional, not people.
Right.
And he said it's very disheartening. He said, so I can see why they get like that. And I thought, I only seen it from my perspective. I only seen it from the guy walking in the door that got treated coldly.
Yeah.
They didn't say hi. They didn't say bye.
Right.
They didn't come over to ask any questions or try to help you. But this guy went out of his way to do it. And he's been in it 20 years, but he's worked in different places. And he said, this area is probably a little worse than others. Texas as a whole, Tennessee as a whole, I don't get that feeling with most people.
Right.
But I think as cultures change, it's getting more like that. And it's probably easier to be more like that in a bigger city than it is in a smaller community.
Yeah. So you was in Texas and kind of witnessed that. I went up to Cincinnati this weekend with the family, and we went up to the Cincinnati Zoo up there, which, by the way, fantastic zoo. So if you get a chance to go visit the Cincinnati Zoo, it is they've got a lot of stuff.
I've always heard good things about it, man.
And it's
Those guys talked us into going to the aquarium in Atlanta a while back.
Yeah, the Atlanta Aquarium
Me and Noah
is
forward
good.
to that. After you recommended it. So now we're gonna have to try the Cincinnati.
Yeah, the Cincinnati Zoo is a fantastic place. Now, of course, now we were up there. It's right around Halloween time, so they had all their Halloween decorations out. And they were actually doing like a trick or treat event at the zoo. So they had different businesses, vendors and things that had tents set up, and they were handing out candy and stuff, and kids were in costumes and stuff. And so it was a great day. But my wife and we took my daughter Ashley up there and her family with us too. And
adopted daughter
Ashley up there with us, and we made mention of everybody that we come in contact with, like when we was buying drinks or when we got lunch or something like that, and some even like the zookeepers and stuff. There's like they seem to be a little cold shouldered from what we're used to, and oddly enough, I had made mention. I said, well, it is the Halloween time. There's probably more people in the zoo than there normally are. They've had to get all these decorations out. All the pumpkins had to be carved because they're real pumpkins that they've carved and set out for decoration. They're not just like fake ones. Some of them are fake, but so there's additional decorating that had to be done. They're putting up Halloween lights, and making everything nice and pretty, So there's some additional things going on. So it stands to reason that maybe they're a little short tempered than they would normally be.
Of course.
There's a little more stress going on. But that mindset would not have been if not for helping go through this book and learn that that I was able to kind of step back and say, well, look at it from their side of how they would be. So I tried to be extra nice to people when we were up there. And talking and going through and putting forth that,
great.
That it does. And again, when you're at a zoo with 4 adults and 3 kids, one of them being 9 months old, and it's kind of warm, it's stressful anyway. So to go that extra of being nice and smiling and I'm not a natural smiler anyway. So but regardless, great examples of kind of what this book teaches of going into it and not experiencing it but not really looking at it from that side and somebody taking the time because you took the time to acknowledge the niceness, took the time to acknowledge and then also my experience up in Cincinnati, looking into
that's
that.
one thing I've always liked about you and admire about you is that you do try to see it. You've always said it's a curse.
Yeah.
Because you see it from both sides. That's just the way God created you. where a lot of us only see it from one side, and that's our side.
Mm-hmm.
But you've always been that way, and I've admired that, even at times when I thought maybe you ain't seen it from my side. But I respect that because that's what you need. You need people in life that, and I think especially in management roles and leadership roles, that can see it not just from the guy they're working with and who cuts the checks, but also the people that are working in that environment. And so I think you need somebody that can have that fairness because often we only going to see it from our side. And that, to kind of wrap it up, I really we could go a lot further, but I
Right.
don't want us to go too long.
Right.
But to kind of summarize a lot of this, it's find out what somebody else's problem is and help them obsess over their problems and help them work through it. And even today, we heard up there as we shared, we're a few chapters ahead, but really learn to listen and validate their concerns, and then try to help them through that process, like we'd want to be helped,
Mm-hmm.
instead of telling them all about our problems.
Right. Well, and then also trying to make it seem like you have the answer to their problems too, right?
Right.
And sometimes you may have the answer to their problem, but that has to be presented as a guidance. And I think that's where all of us can improve. Is you may know how to fix it, but if I tell you how to fix it, you're just going to feel like I'm telling you how to fix it. But if I help you understand and guide you to it, um, then I can make you more to know how to fix it. And that's what this is talking about.
And we
So,
could go into detail about that a lot more, but just top of mind, what's one of the best ways I feel you do that?
um, I think it's asking questions.
I knew it. That's exactly where it.
Yeah, I think it's it. I think you just ask questions, and again,
And Casey, you get a rap around here. It's like, man, Casey never tells me the answer. He just always asks me questions.
yeah,
And me and you do that with each other a lot, don't we?
hmm
Like
we
we're
do.
just often asking each other questions because we know we're going to get a better understanding that way than
Well,
just.
it's amazing how much
Mhm,
gets resolved by asking questions, and that goes against the norm, right? You would
mhm.
think that in order to get something resolved, you got to have the solution. You just got to have the right question.
Yeah, and people really respect that, but we're not used to it again.
Yes.
We're used to, and I think we've been trained in our public schools, and you were a teacher, you're a product of that, yourself. But I think
hmm
going to Van Buren County, where you went, you've had these
hmm
conversations. I think you grew up more in a private school. I
Right.
think everybody kind of knew everybody, and they could lean on you a little bit more that day if they seen you were sharp and ask a few more questions. Yes, they were teaching a curriculum, but they had smaller groups that they could really mold and work with. And I think that's what really why today you're such a good free thinker. And at a young age, you learned, if you put in effort from tennis, that if you went up there and you practiced serving 500 times, that the effort would lead to better results.
Right.
And I think a lot of people don't feel that way. And again, when you don't have an encourager, you don't have somebody that can admire the strengths in you and bring that best out in you, it's a sad world for those folks.
Right. But to the point of this chapter, none of that for anybody, including yourself, is ever going to improve if you don't want it.
You got to be hungry.
You got to want it.
Well, and growing up in my home, very negative, man. My mom told me every day, "You're stupid, you're dumb, you're never going to amount to anything. You'll be just like your dad." Now, when I met my dad at 15, I was scared of him, but he wasn't a bad guy. Man, my dad was that encourager in my life too. He really helped me, but I was so victimized, if you understand what I'm saying. I was so programmed to think that I was never going to amount to anything that I'm just by nature deflected to a defeat. So if me and you were playing tennis and you got a little bit of a lead on me, I'm that just proves everything I've always been told. I'm not good enough. I'll never amount to nothing. So I would just automatically pull that victim card and
Right.
fall way back. But I can tell you, one good person like my dad at 15 who had to learn to trust, and me and dad's never really been like a father son relationship. It's always been more like a friend relationship, which is cool.
hmm
I don't I like I don't want my hand held. You know what I mean? I want I don't mind a friendship. I don't want to be baby. And a
Right.
lot of parents still do that with their kids. But I got to work with dad sometimes on that. But more than not, we're friends. And so, but he really taught me to believe in myself. He really taught me to believe that if you put forth effort, you can get results. And if you try hard, don't give up, then you can become somebody. But I didn't have somebody in my corner treating me with that kind of courtesy and that generosity. I may have stayed a victim. And Bobby Davis has said this at Life Church a few times. He said He said, I can help almost anybody. He said, but the only person I can help, the only person you can't help, he said, God can't even help, is a victim. And so if every time we pull out the victim card, you're never going to get nowhere in life.
Right.
So when we say encouragement, we're not saying it's okay to just baby somebody or just
Correct.
coddle them. We're saying admire them, see their strengths, help them develop those strengths. And you do that by listening and understanding and ask questions. So guys, we don't want to be here all day. Casey, thank you for taking time
Yeah, most certainly.
to
Thanks
share
for
here
having me.
today. And I know Casey and I will probably have the same challenge for you that have took time to listen and watch. If you've got this far, we want to really encourage you. Who do you know this week? Who do you know this week that you could encourage, that you could share and admire just a little bit with them, admire them, listen to them, have them tell you their story, and just encourage and admire them? How good do you think? How good does it make you feel when somebody does that with you? And you could get to give that same gift. So I challenge you this week: find one person, encourage them, admire them, listen to them, and then think about it while you're doing it. Become very aware of how does that make me feel? Because generally, we're really at our best when we're serving other people, not ourselves.
Right.
Guys, thank you very much. Hope you all have a great week.